Hello!
Welcome to the Vietnam Recap.
Helpful to put all of our thoughts together and some of our highlights, some of our lowlights, as well as what we spent all together in one Vietnam recap video. For the most part, we did a pretty good job with our packing list for Vietnam. It was the wet season, so I think in hindsight, probably wouldn't have been a terrible idea to bring a rain jacket.
Or a really good poncho.
Yeah.
We ended up buying a poncho at one point for a couple bucks.
Didn't last.
Which lasted a little while, but there was often times where we were kind of getting wet, but most of the time we just went out and did it anyway. We would just get wet and be like, whatever, it is what it is, things will dry, no big deal.
And those ended up being the best days in Vietnam, where we just said, I don't care, we're gonna go out regardless, and took the motorbike out for adventures, and we had pretty low expectations, and it was usually the best days.
Yeah, it always worked out.
I didn't expect it to be that cold in the north of Vietnam, and when we say cold, I mean I definitely needed like a good pair of wool socks and a couple sweaters. I had probably about 4 or 5 layers on at one point for like 2 weeks, which were the only layers that I had, so smelled kind of rank after a week.
Mind you, Sapa was a mountain town, so it was high up altitude, as well as Dalat, which is also a mountain town, and it was also a little chilly there.
I'm gonna talk about laundry for a minute, because we planned on doing laundry ourselves in this dry bag and like just shaking out our clothes and kind of doing a couple cycles that way. That lasted a couple times. Michael grew very impatient with my laundry services as I had our clothes draped all over the hostel room. He just was not having it.
Couch surfer rooms, like there was just clothes hanging everywhere all the time, and it was like dripping wet. It was just super inconvenient. To save a couple dollars, we decided to just start using the laundry services that were provided at these hostels.
Which wasn't cheap. I thought they were going to be a lot cheaper, but it ended up being like $5 every time you did laundry.
Which is expensive, but it definitely was worth it instead of having to deal with dripping water on your face when you're lying in your bed in a hostel.
Thank you. Vietnam was the first month that we were testing out the waters with being vegan, and it worked out surprisingly really well. A lot of people said, why are you choosing to become vegan when you're traveling in Southeast Asia? And because Buddhism is the predominant religion in Vietnam, because the monks eat vegetarian, there's a lot of really great vegetarian and vegan restaurant options. So we were thoroughly impressed with the food. It was absolutely delicious. In each city and each restaurant that we went to, the options were completely different.
There wasn't one restaurant that had the same types of foods. The menus were always different, except for the hot pots. But that's only because we went to the same restaurant a million times over. But that's, besides the point.
Yeah. We stayed mostly in the south with some couch surfers, which was a really amazing experience because we got to stay with some locals and we got to hang out with lots of babies and puppies, which is always fun.
Everybody loves babies and puppies. Outside of the couch surfing, we did stay in a few hostels. For the most part, they were inexpensive as well. Honestly, I think the beds might have been more comfortable than the couch surfing beds. I think every single time we had a couch surfer, we did have our own private room.
Yeah.
Except for maybe one time. But the beds were a little hard for what we're used to. In the hostels, they were definitely softer, more of a mattress type. So we did have better sleeps when we were in hostels.
And we got a pillow, which was nice.
In most of the couch surfing places, we had to share a pillow between the two of us. So you really can't be too picky when you have couch surfing. But, you know, we were very grateful for the people that actually took us in. It was still a good experience.
It was awesome.
The sleeping might have been a little questionable at times.
We would rotate who gets the pillow from night to night. We took a mix of overnight buses, which I really loved. I slept like a baby.
They're a little small for 6'3", but honestly weren't that bad. In the south part of Vietnam, we predominantly took the buses, and in the north part, There was a lot more trains, so we ended up taking the trains in the north part.
And overnight trains are not as ideal when you're on a budget and getting the seats, because it really is just a seat and you can kind of lean back, but we had our pillows and our eye masks and our earplugs, so we were able to kind of cancel out the world, but it's not the best sleep.
Yeah. In each individual town, we ended up renting a motorbike, as you know. That was a huge, huge asset for us because of the fact that it provided so much flexibility and we were able to explore on our own. We were able to go to the restaurants that we wanted to go to, even if they were only a couple kilometers away. So getting a motorbike, as inexpensive as it was one of the best investments we probably could have done for the entire month.
I think we spent about $5 or $6 on a day-to-day basis. We didn't have to take the tours, and it was just a neat way to get lost around Vietnam.
And I think to fill up a tank was maybe $2. So
Yeah.
overall, it was definitely worth the money. Our budget. So we had planned originally to spend, I think it was $61 per day in Vietnam for the whole month. And we ended up averaging
$46 per day, woohoo!
for the both of us for the whole month, which was pretty good.
Yeah.
It worked out to be about $1,400 and change.
Under that.
It worked out to be $1,384 in change for the entire month of Vietnam, not including the flight.
Our roses with Vietnam. I think our top rose was definitely the people.
Absolutely. The Vietnamese people were one of the friendliest culture that I've ever encountered.
People go out of their way to help you. Not a whole lot of people understood English outside of the main cities. You know, you'd be trying to speak with them and ask direction, and they would say, you know, one moment, and they would kind of go and grab someone.
They tried to help
get
you,
you to
even though they
smell.
couldn't really help you. They went out of the way to do so. And another great example is when we were staying in Dalat at a restaurant, we ended up eating a whole hot pot, and after finishing it, realizing that we didn't even have our wallet with us, so we couldn't even pay.
We had no money.
And our couch surfers was about 2 kilometers away, and we were walking.
Uphill.
So we asked if we could come back and pay later, and even though it was the second time we had eaten there, they really didn't know us. And they said, yeah, that's fine, just come back tomorrow and pay for your meal. That sheer kindness of allowing us to do so was amazing, and you wouldn't get that in the Western world, that's for sure.
And there's a little bit more of an inherent trust in that we felt within the Vietnamese culture. I'm super like Fort Knox when it comes to my stuff and just making sure everything's locked and loaded and just like super secure. But once we started traveling through Vietnam, I felt a little bit more at ease. The predominant religion is Buddhism. One of the couch surfers said that those ideals and those values really permeate throughout their culture, and there's just a sense of peace and a sense of doing the right thing, which was really awesome. Super quick, another rose was the food. It was bomb, it was dynamite, it was delicious.
Hands down.
Yeah, miss it. The landscapes were unbelievable. Up in the northern region of Sapa, we would look out of our hostel and it was like the desktop computer picture that you're kind of pinching yourself and saying like, wow, is this real? And yeah, it was. We were there. And so it was really gorgeous. Another rose was experiencing Buddhism a little bit more, learning more about it, seeing the temples as well as the monasteries. We didn't get a lot of opportunities to interact with any of the monks, but when we did, it was really positive.
It's very peaceful, and a few times we had the opportunity to actually meditate in the temples, which helped to ground ourselves a little bit and also reflect on, you know, some of the things we're sharing with you today.
Our thorns.
Biggest thorn for me was the pollution. Because of the fact that there's so many motorbikes, especially in the bigger cities like Hanoi and
Ho Chi
Minh City, even some of the smaller cities, there's just so many motorbikes and so much pollution that at times it was just difficult to breathe.
So we got the masks.
They definitely helped. They made a big difference.
Yeah.
Mostly when you're driving on the motorbike, you could tell because there was just exhaust coming into your face from the motorbike or the car in front of you.
In short, we did 30 days in Vietnam, 10 different cities. We liked the smaller towns in comparison to the big cities, so we didn't spend a whole lot of time in the big cities. We found that the south was much less touristy than the north side of Vietnam, and we really loved the people.
Absolutely. The culture was amazing. The food was amazing. I mean,
The whole experience was very positive.
that's a wrap on our reflections on Vietnam over our first month of travels. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you haven't watched any of the videos from our travels in Vietnam, you can go back and check them out. There should be a series of about 10 videos sitting there waiting for you.
And we still love each other. Right?
Yeah, of course. You're my favorite.
You better say that. You better. My precious. My precious.
Okay, I think we're done.